cleverly, Johnny Beerling, who was one of the producers at Radio 1, he got to know a lot of the pirate radio DJs, and he sort of said, well, you know, where do you get your jingles? Well, we get them from Pams. So when Radio 1 started, they started buying their jingles from Pams. And the first package confirmed, or as soon as I heard it, I knew that syndication really did exist, because this was the first jingle on Radio 1.
The voice of Radio 1, just for fun, music, too much.
So then I knew syndication existed, that they sang it to different tunes. How do you kind of get in contact with other jingle people when, you know, there's no internet, you didn't even know there were any jingle people, any jingle fans? I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one who was interested in jingles in the entire world. And so I put an ad into the Record Mirror saying, you know, anybody interested, and if you're interested in jingles, you're also interested in pirate radio, because that's the only place you heard it. So I put an ad in Record Mirror saying, anybody interested in exchanging jingles, or you know, interested in jingles or pirate radio, please write to me, you know. And a lot of the stuff was off air. People didn't have proper copies of anything. And I started corresponding with quite a few people in England who you know, were interested in jingles and either recorded them off air or they got very, very bad copies of the demos. A guy called, his name has escaped me, but a guy from Caroline North, Don Allen, that's his name. Don Allen, he very kindly sent me some demos, original demos of Pam's demos of stuff, and so I got to, you know, this is what the stations hear before they buy the jingles, sort of thing. It was very, very difficult in those days, because when you became a collector, and I discovered there were a few other people interested, and it was a handful in Britain, your copies were as good as the worst tape recorder they'd gone through. So if somebody has a really rotten tape recorder and it never cleaned the heads and the azimuth was off and it was really knackered, well, that's the quality you got for your dub, because it just got worse and worse as people dubbed them. But however, you know, we all collected these bad quality things, and we're all hoping for the golden chalice, which is to get, you know, close to the stuff that was coming from America. But by this time, through a Swedish guy who collected jingles, made a contact with a guy in America, and started to hook up to the American network of jingle collectors. Now, in those days, there was a network of maybe, probably a couple of dozen jingle collectors in America. Amongst them was Neil Hart. You may have heard something saying, here's Neil Hart with a new jinglegram. Well, Neil Hart was a collector. Ken Justice, I don't know if you know that name, but he's a guy who used to work at TM, very clever guy. He was a big collector, and he was the one that I got to correspond with quite a lot. John Wolfert was a jingle collector, grown up in New York, loved WABC, used to go down to his local station, ask them where the jingles came from, collected the jingles, you know, big fan of WABC, and of course WABC was the station then, the #1 station in America, with the best jingles, and so on. Ken R. Deutsch, Ken R., he was another collector at that time, and so, you know, you had this network of collectors in America, which I got to know. I'm sure you'll all be familiar with this sort of photograph. They're all reel-to-reels, I'm sure yours are CDs, but that was my jingle collection, you know, bits and pieces. I blanked this one off, these tapes here off Peppertan. And these were tapes that the American collectors had sent me, other ones were air checks, stuff I collected myself. It was really hard to get hold of the material then, really, really hard. And almost like Jam, when you write to them, you don't get a reply. Happens sometimes. So you couldn't get a lot from Pams, for example. I'll move on now to talking. What happened was I set up a mobile discotheque, called myself Steve England, but I was really, really interested in these jingles and corresponding with these American guys and jingle collecting and so on. And then I was lucky enough to get a job on Radio Caroline. And how I did it was I just turned up there one day with a photographer friend of mine and said, you know, come out to me, they're starting again off the Dutch coast, come with me, come with me. So I went with him, and then there's a long story, but basically Ronan O'Reilly was on the ship, who owned the ship, and I ran up to him. I was just visiting, and I ran up to him and I said, can I stay? I'll do anything, and I don't want any money. And I said the magic words, I don't want any money. And he said, oh, sure, that's okay. So I then went and hid away in the front hold till the tender had gone. The tender is the small ship that comes out. And then I emerged, and they said, what are you doing here? You're supposed to, you just came in with this photographer. Oh, well, Ronan says I could stay, so that's it, I got a job. Albeit at no money, but that's how most people do get into radio, even today. So I got my job on Radio Caroline, and believe it or not, that on the right is me, or was me. I didn't always look like Homer Simpson, you know. Yeah, this is Radio Caroline. Very interesting, enjoyed it. It was a bit difficult, really. It was, at that time, the station was playing the kind of music I didn't like. It was playing lots of heavy rock and progressive music and stuff like that. But very quickly after that, I moved to another radio station called Radio Atlantis, which luckily I ended up running, and I really enjoyed that. And we put out lots and lots of pirated Sirius 27 on that station, I can tell you. By that time, Ken Justice had also was doing Sonovox, and he was selling it, and so I sold some of Ken's Sonovox. In fact, I had my own. I, by that time, learned how to do it myself. And if you don't know how Sonovox is done, most of you will know it. It's a little pair of speakers through which you play whatever instrument you want to talk. You put it to your throat like that, and then you just don't use your vocal cords, but you mouth the words, and it's picked up by a microphone in front of you like that. That's how Sonovox works. So Ken Justice was doing it, I was doing it, and we sold some stuff to Radio North Sea, Radio Caroline, and Atlantis was also playing some of Ken's Sonovox. This is some of Ken's Sonovox on the CD.
Radio Atlantis 270 is too much.
Okay, then the Dutch closed down the pirate stations, and just about that time, commercial radio was starting up in Britain, and it's hard to believe, you know, but bizarre though it might sound, we marched on 10 Downing Street for commercial radio. I stood up at Hyde Park Corner when I was on Radio Atlantis and gave some stupid speech about commercial radio, how we needed it. It was a battle to get commercial radio. The Labour Party did not want commercial radio. They had commercial television since 1955, but they really did not want commercial radio. So it was only when the Conservatives came in that commercial radio started. And it started with very few stations, one in London, two in London, and then a few dotted around the country. And one of them was Piccadilly. And I was very lucky that as soon as my radio station closed down, I got a job, thanks to Steve Merrick and Roger Day, at Piccadilly Radio. And this is yet another ridiculous-looking photograph of a very young guy. Which was interesting, you know. Piccadilly, it was interesting at that time. I didn't think so when I first got there. They had programs on classical music, on Gilbert and Sullivan, on all sorts of things. It was boring, but for somebody in their 20s. But it was a really interesting station to work at. And that's when lots of weird things happened. Actually, John Wolfert came to Piccadilly. Do you want to show the next photograph? Yeah, there you go. That's John at Piccadilly. What had happened was he had a call from a guy called George Ferguson at Beacon Radio that was starting up, and he persuaded him to come over. In the end, the Musicians' Union wouldn't let them use American jingles, but he made an appointment at Radio 1, and I took John to Radio 1 for that appointment. I knew him by then. The weird thing was, Ken Justice was working at TM Productions, and John Wolfert was working at Hams and starting up Jam, and they lived in the same apartment address, 604 Stevens Village Drive, Dallas, Texas. The apartment number was different. And I phoned I got a card saying Jam Productions, and I phoned it, and I thought I was speaking to Ken, and I was speaking to John. So that's how I got to know John.